So I'm about to show my age, right? Because I wonder if you guys remember Little House on the Prairie. That family spent all of their time working the land and cooking, and basically in survival mode. Do you feel like you're still in survival mode? Do you spend all of your time working and then cooking? Well, that puts us in the position where we want our time back. And the solution is either make more money in less time or take less time cooking. And there are many companies that have come along and offered us ways to spend less time in the kitchen. And unfortunately, they don't tell us that this time-saving process, so the processed foods that they give us that are going to save us so much time, are also going to make them rich, right? While causing us to have 3 really huge problems that would rob us of that precious time that we're trying to get. So I'm going to pay for these foods, but then I'm not going to end up with the time, and I'm going to show you why that's happening, right? And the first of these 3 problems is that they cause us to be dependent on the company, or dependence in general, but not on the company. So if you're new here, I'm going to remind you about my 2 favorite books. Like, they're new favorite books. One is Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss. And the other one is Food, What the Heck Should I Eat by Mark Hyman. And those books have helped me to understand that the composition of the processed foods that we eat today are on purpose. What that means is that the food companies hired scientists to figure out the amount of salt, sugar, and fat that needed to be in the food that they're making, so this processed garbage, to make it irresistible to me. That word irresistible is important because the goal is that when you go to eat a cookie of theirs or some chips or a healthy bar, you want to eat more than one. I mean, is there a food that you could think of that you actually find so irresistible that you feel compelled to eat it? And not just more than one, like maybe you have 2 or 3 chips. No, I'm talking about more than a serving, right? So consider that healthy granola bar that we'd have as a snack, right? Have you ever eaten more than 1 granola bar at a time? Because I know that I have never eaten just 1 granola, maybe when I was a kid. But I mean, in my adult world, I've never eaten just 1 granola bar as my snack. That never happened to me. It was always 2. And I want you to understand that that's actually the company's goal, that we overeat their product. And that is with the food company knowing that their product is too high in sugar, fat, and salt. So why doesn't it taste salty if it's too high in salt? Have you ever asked that question? And I think soda is the best example of this because I had no idea they added salt to soda. But why doesn't it taste salty? Science, right? They add not only the salt and the sugar, but they also add chemicals, in the case of sodas, that stop it from tasting off, wrong, right? And the particular levels of salt and sugar play together, and fat, depending if it's a food, play together so perfectly that it's just the right amount of sweet. It's just the right amount of fat and just the right amount of salt that helps everything to come together and just taste yummy, right? It's delicious. It's irresistible. It's exactly what you want in your mouth all the time. And so you don't even notice that this isn't really food, but a science experiment that went right. I was shocked when I learned there's 50 milligrams of salt in cola, 35 milligrams of salt in orange soda, and club soda has a whopping 75 milligrams of salt. I was shocked when I learned that. I did not understand that there was salt in sweet tasting drinks. And they know that the products have a lethal mix of salt, sugar, and fat. That's the part that's even disgusting about it. So how do they get us to eat it, right? Knowing that it has a lethal mix of salt, sugar, and fat. Not that it just has some, right? An apple has sugar in it. Let me give you a better one. An avocado has sugar and fat in it. You know, it doesn't kill us. These products have a lethal amount. How do they get us to eat it? Marketing. Yeah. Everything about the way the garbage is packaged, right? It's all about the marketing. It gets us to buy it. There's the pretty, colorful packaging on the kids' products and the mature packaging with the health information, the focus on, well, actually the health information is the focus on the kids' packaging and the adult packaging, but the adult packaging looks a little bit more adult, but that healthy part is more pronounced, right? Because they need the kids to scream in the store about mommy buying that crap. And then you pick it up and you start reading the package looking for the reason not to buy it and be like, oh, wow, no artificial flavors or colors in this thing? Bravo. Yeah, sugar is not an artificial flavor. Neither is salt. So they can very well write that. And unfortunately, just because there's no artificial colors or flavorings doesn't mean there aren't chemicals. They're just not the ones that cause flavors or change the color. There's still things that make it shelf stable. Okay, I'm going off topic. They go out of their way to make us believe that the foods are healthy, knowing that they're not, knowing that information, Wellness Warrior. And I say that with all confidence because we know when we look at healthy foods, if you look at them, can we pause for a moment and realize that most whole foods, healthy foods, don't come in fancy packages because they don't have to endorse them with a low calorie count or a heart healthy check to get us to eat them because we know that they're healthy, right? They're just sitting there on the shelves, labeled, waiting for us to purchase them, based mostly on price. The marketing has a huge impact on us. First of all, we want processed foods because they actually are supposed to be just as healthy or even healthier according to their packaging, right? They're easier to prepare, so easier to get our kids to eat, make our life just easier, and best of all, they taste better. They're fun tasting. They're irresistible. And I know this, and I say this quite easily because our grocery carts show it, right? We're buying much more processed foods in our grocery carts than healthy vegetables and meats. And I was shocked by this. I was in Costco and I saw this and I thought to myself, what is Costco? People come here for bulk items. So of course it makes sense that in Costco I see that, right? that I see someone beside me and there's hardly any produce and it's all packaged. But then I went to the regular grocery store. I went to Provigo and I went to Maxi. A little bit later in the week, I even went to Super C. And guess what? I still saw the same thing. I'm walking through the grocery store. My cart has meats and vegetables in it. And their carts, everyone around me, I don't have any video of this because I just didn't feel it was fair, but everyone around me, their carts were filled up with processed foods. And milk. There was milk. Most people had milk. And I mean, was it that you came in for milk and got suckered into buying all the other garbage? I don't know. But it's hard for me to understand how people are shopping this way. But let's go back to the original question, which is how does this make us dependent? Because I feel like I'm not being clear. So let me be more clear. There's two ways. The first one is that we cannot easily make some of the products, and some others we just can't make. So for example, chocolate chip cookies, store-bought, it takes minutes to access, and then we're eating it like within minutes. Easy. But if you try to make homemade cookies, well, it's like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, right? Because you got to go to the store, and it's not just grab the package and go to the cash. I got to go get the flour and the sugar and the eggs and the baking soda or baking powder, depending what kind of cookie you're making, the chocolate chips, if we're staying with this line of going. What else? I need some kind of oil to put in my cookies. Maybe I'm going to use butter as a healthy way to do it, but I might be putting anything else, but I hope you're only using butter. And then, so when I get that long list of ingredients, and I go to the cash and okay, I check out. And then I get home, but I still need to mix all these ingredients. So I have to mix did I say salt? You need to buy salt. Then I have to mix the dry ingredients. And then I have to mix the wet ingredients. And then I have to combine the ingredients. Because if you don't do that in the right order, it won't come out right. And then I have to put them in the oven, and I need to be patient for another, you know what? I got my time wrong. There's probably another 20 minutes there before those cookies are going to be cooked. And then I still need to let them cool off. Chances are this might take you 2 to 2.5 hours if you have to go, if you don't have that, all the ingredients in your house and you have to go to the store. Yeah, it's going to take you a good amount of time. And so, Wellness Warrior, I mean, is it reality that it's making us dependent? 100%. It's making us dependent. We want these things, and we don't have time. That's what we started off talking about. You don't have time to be in the kitchen making these good. Now, let's talk about the other ones, though, because those Oreos, you only have access to store-bought Oreos because the recipe is proprietary. And honestly, I've tasted replicas, and they've never tasted anywhere close to what an Oreo tasted like. What about cornflakes and other branded cereals? It's the same thing. I've tasted those off brands. They've never tasted anywhere close to what I could make or some other company could make. And cereals we can't even make. Well, I mean, I'm sure some clever YouTube person has figured out a way to make cornflakes. And maybe it is possible. But I'm sure that the time that to invest to make cornflakes is probably much longer than someone like me would take to make them. So what happens when we really want this thing that either we can't make on our own, or if I try to make it on my own, right, it isn't working. So we end up buying it because that's the way that we're going to be able to get it. So, if you want the taste, you got to buy it. And now I'm dependent on whatever company makes this product. Well, I want to add a little curveball here. We don't think about the fact that craving that product equals I'm addicted. I said the word, right? That's the way they keep us dependent. The amount of sugar in these processed foods actually cause us to be addicted to them. And can I point out once again, irresistible, code word for addictive, equals they know what they're doing. So you know that feeling you have when you feel a craving for your favorite cookie or chocolate bar? In my case, that's what I was chasing, right? Something chocolatey. But maybe it becomes, I want a chocolate bar. Okay, I'll settle for chocolate chip cookies. Okay, I'll settle for something. Why do we get to the I'll settle for something? All right, because you don't have the cookie or the chocolate bar that you wanted in the house. But now you're in your kitchen looking to get something else that is sweet. And you eat it just to satisfy that craving for that other thing. That's does that sound familiar to you? Right? That's similar to someone who usually drinks bourbon, but there isn't any, so I'll have a beer, but oh my gosh, there isn't any. I'll drink some mouthwash. That sound familiar? The truth is, back in the day when I wanted a chocolate bar, but there wasn't any, that should have been the end of the story. But it never was. Never. Somehow, when it comes to snacking, especially junky snacks, we keep going until we get something that gives us that hit of sugar. And we don't even realize that that's what we're doing. We're looking for that hit of sugar. The second problem that happens is led into, right? Like that's, okay, the second problem that happens is that obesity and illness, that even though every wellness warrior in here is aware that eating cookies, cakes, and ice cream will absolutely lead to weight gain, we believe that there is a moderate amount of junk food we can have, right? This is what we're told by doctors, by nutritionists, who learned that from where, right? That there's a moderate amount that we can have to maintain a healthy weight. We got that idea from food companies. 10 years ago, or years ago, I should say 10 years, but years ago, when the health professionals began to link obesity to eating processed food, a full campaign was unleashed on North America to convince us that weight was a simple matter of calories in, calories out. Knowing that the foods that they made and they were selling us were addictive, and making us fat, they then blamed us for not exercising enough. Right? For not exercising enough.
The saddest part of the entire thing is that we know about this metabolic slowdown. This was shown in 1915. So we've known about it for 100 years. What I think is sad is that we give people this really horrific advice to eat less and move more. And then when they fail, we blame them for it, right? And that's basically you're blaming the victim. Because here's this poor fellow or poor lady who's victimized because they're suffering from obesity, from type 2 diabetes. You give them really bad advice, which you know is going to fail, because we've all done it. It fails every single time. And then when the weight goes back, you say, yeah, you should have listened to me better. You should have had more willpower. You shouldn't have eaten that bagel, or whatever it is you tell people, right? And that's really the saddest part of all, is that we try to pretend that the advice that we give is really good, and the failure lies with all of you, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? How can, like, 40, 50% of the population be so morally bankrupt that they let this happen to them? Is it not more logical that the advice that we gave was just really crappy? That seems to me much more sensible. So we're going to explain why this sort of discrepancy exists. So in order to do that, you have to understand what happens when you eat. Okay? So what happens when you eat is that insulin goes up. So most foods, almost all foods, have a mixture of macronutrients, fats, carbohydrates, and protein. So your insulin goes up to a varying degree. And insulin basically is the hormone that tells your body to store fat. So it stops your body from burning fat. You start to store some of the sugar and store some of the fat. Okay? And this is normal. This is a normal situation. So carbohydrates get turned into glycogen, which are chains of glucose. So chains of glucose in the liver is basically a storage form of sugar. Okay? And when you have too much of that, then your liver produces lipids, which is called de novo lipogenesis, and it basically stores fat. Okay? So when you don't eat, when you're fasting, so fasting is merely the absence of eating, your insulin levels fall. And that's a signal to start pulling some of that energy out, right? So you're going to start by pulling some energy out from the glycogen, which is your stored sugar, and you're going to pull some energy out of the stored fat. So you can think of it, the glycogen, like a refrigerator, right? You're storing food energy. And the reason it's like a refrigerator is that it's easy to access. So you can put food in easily. You can take food out easily, right? It's just food energy. And the fat is more like your freezer, okay? So you can store more of it, but it's in your basement. You know, it's hard to get to. It's hard to get out. It's hard to put in. So you generally prefer to use your refrigerator. And it's the same idea. You have two storage forms of energy.
1915. Wellness warrior. Science has known that hormones control storage since 1915. But food companies convinced and encouraged and paid off? Wording can be tricky here. Doctors to join them. Schools, so medical schools, to join them in blaming you and me for years for something that they knew that they caused. Why would they do that? They do it for profit, right? The more of their junk that we eat, the more money that they make. Does it sound too simple, right? That's my third way of letting you see that we are dependent on them. They make sure that we stay dependent because that money coming in is necessary, right? They want that money coming in. So I'm getting a message that the stream stopped. Let me just double check. Shows here that it's going well. I'll keep going unless someone else says the same thing. So, because healthy food doesn't compel us to overeat them, Wellness Warrior, that's the problem. Apparently, a normal amount of profit. Okay, thank you, Sing It, for telling me that it's going well. Apparently, a normal amount of profit is not as enticing as a ridiculous amount of profit. That's why they do it. Right? Can you imagine that we only made $1 million instead of $5 million this year? If my customers are healthy, why isn't that what I want? But somehow, right? And it seems obvious, except most of us are outraged, right? When we learn about how the animals that we eat are housed and fed. We get outraged. And we will give up eating meat altogether because we're outraged that that animal is kept in a cage and and walking around in its poop and all kinds of stuff that it would never do out in the wild. It would never do that. And we're outraged and we don't eat meat and we eat much less, right? If at all. But somehow, humans, right, us, somehow companies have no trouble feeding us garbage and having our health deteriorate. And they don't get outraged and say, oh, we have to stop this. Why not? Why don't they get as upset for us as we get for the animals? Why not? Because me eating garbage isn't seen or isn't even the end of that chain. Because when I eat the garbage and then I get sick, well, then I need medical attention and surgery to maintain any type of existence. So now a new part of the chain has come into play and more money is being made there. But then when I'm living this existence, but I'm not happy because I can't do any of the stuff. Well, I'm sorry, do you understand that I was in tears when I couldn't go snowboarding that year? That 1 year that I missed, that I missed because of health. I was in tears because I live for the winter to go snowboarding. I look forward to that immensely. And I couldn't go. The fact that I couldn't even go longboarding, I couldn't go, all the things that I typically do to entertain myself, I couldn't do. I could barely sit and work. That was causing pain. Like what I'm doing right now. 6 years ago, I couldn't do it. Right? For a large period of time. I think it was like 8 months before I figured out to start eating this way. And it still took another 3 months before the pain went away. Because I missed a whole ski season and a whole summer of longboard. Can you understand that I was crying? My life did not look like... So what happens when we're crying and our life doesn't look like what we want it to look like? What do? We find a way to self-soothe by eating more of their garbage. Do you see how the circle gets completed? Right? Because, of course, if I'm going to eat to make myself feel better, I'm going to eat something that tastes good to me. So I eat cookies, cake, ice cream, whatever the garbage was to make myself feel better, right? Wellness warrior. My profitability to a company only ends when I'm no longer breathing, right? We are just that small puzzle piece, right? Small piece of the puzzle, right? What we don't see, that puzzle piece that's missing that we didn't see, is all the money that they make because of us little peons there, right? Because, oh, by the way, I'm not sure if you noticed, those are people in that image, right? And could you pick yourself out of that image if you needed to? Could you pick yourself out and say, oh, there I am, that's me? And that's exactly the point. They do not care that it's you or that it's me. I care. I care greatly. And we care about the animals can I just point it out again? We need to understand that we're just a small part of the puzzle that keeps them living the lifestyle that they want to live. And we need to stop believing that people running these companies think like we do. I actually get sad when I hear about how the animals that I'm supposed to eat are treated, right? That's why I've encouraged you guys, find local farms where the farmers treat the animals properly, at least while they're living and getting ready to become our food, that they're having a good life. Because it's ridiculous. I feel sad. But then companies are making something that doesn't have to harm an animal for me to eat, but is harming me, and they feel no problem doing that. They have no problem. So I'm not talking about the company because the company is an entity. I'm talking about the fact that people work at these companies. So the scientists that are making this garbage for us to eat that know it's not healthy, So the people higher in the company who have, in Michael Moss's interviews, admitted to not eating their own product because it's not healthy, but they're selling it to us to eat. You see yourself as a person, but companies see you as a heavy user or a potential heavy user. And if you aren't one of those, you are no use to them. So if you stop eating that and you're just casually eating it, you're not bringing them in enough money. They need to figure out how to get you eating. Coca-Cola actually wanted every person to drink only Coke at every meal, or Coke products at every meal. They wanted to be more drank than water. That was in Michael Moss's book. They were trying to be more drank than water. How does that make any sense? Right? For a product that we know isn't healthy. Casual isn't going to bring them a big enough profit that's going to keep those shareholders happy. So, do you allow yourself to become someone's profit? So you're all going to try to say no to that, but the truth is, we are. If you still buy processed products today, then you are. Because what we should be eating is whole foods. That's what we should be eating. Whole foods. One ingredient foods. That's what we should be eating. There is no need for us to buy processed foods. Weight management is not a calorie story. So any product that's marketing towards you that's going to help you to save weight, that's talking about calories? No. Weight management is a carbohydrate story. And every carbohydrate that you eat counts. So don't let companies trick you into believing that only the added sugar counts, because when we look at those packagings and they're saying, oh, it's low in sugar, they're talking about added sugar. No sugar added, they're talking about added sugar. Now that we've listened to Dr. Fung speak and Dr. Westman and Dr. Barry and Dr. Berg and all the doctors, we know that medical science has known for decades that our body cares about carbohydrates. It has no understanding of calories at all, because calories is a made-up metric by a scientist to understand how much energy you would get out of a potato if you set it on fire versus if you set a bunch of chickpeas on fire versus if you set some meat on fire. But you also get calories if you set your chair on fire, but we don't eat that. So did you know that if you set some wood on fire, you will get a calorie count out of it? That if you set your house on fire, there's a calorie count to that. Do we understand that? That is just a measure of energy from something that was burned, not at all the way that your body interacts with food. Your body does not burn food. Even though we talk about burning calories, that's not what our body does. Our body uses carbohydrates and fat and protein internally to fuel us and to build us. So carbohydrates as a fuel. Carbohydrates are not a building block. Fat as a fuel and a building block. Protein as a building block, it's not a fuel. It only gets used in a pinch. But right? And it gets used as energy when it's being recycled, which is another thing that people misunderstand. They think that when our body goes in, I'm getting off topic, but I just want to say this last thing. They think that when our body goes in and uses protein for energy, it's using healthy muscle and eye tissue. And no, it's using proteins that are floating around in you that are not necessary. So broken, denatured, whatever proteins. It's taking excess skin if you have any. It's doing cleanup and using that as energy. Why wouldn't it? It makes sense to do because it's there and it needs to break it down. So knowing how much sugar is in your food, okay, means that you can eat what you decide to eat, which means I'm encouraging you once again, whether you're eating carnivore diet well, if you're eating a carnivore diet, you don't need to do this. But if you're eating a keto diet, a low carb diet, a paleo diet, a Mediterranean diet, I'm actually encouraging you to still track. Weigh your foods, your vegetables, and track them, because you need to know how much is in whatever you're having, right? And if you don't know how much is in what you're having, then you're not going to be able to make good decisions. Ignore the very bold calorie count that are on the packages if you still insist on eating packaged foods. Ignore that calorie count and search through the fine print to find the serving size and the carb count, because that's what you need. But of course, you're hearing me. I'm saying don't even eat them. Eat whole foods. I want you to believe the doctors who are saying that you should keep your carb count under 20. Why do I want you to do that? Why am I saying believe them? There's no profit to be made by telling you that. Wellness Warrior, they make nothing. I'm making nothing right now by telling you eat less than 20 grams of carbs every day. There's no profit to be made there. And you can do that with 100% natural foods that have not been processed in any way. I did it. And I wasn't only able to heal my body and my hip. So do you know that? Do you know, like I said it earlier, I was unable to go snowboarding. What was my reason for not being able? It wasn't just because I was fat. It was because I ate so much garbage, so much ridiculous food that my body started to have inflammation issues in my joints, because sugar causes inflammation, but also poor quality oils cause inflammation. I was having both. So I was not able to go snowboarding or longboarding or all my fun activities because I could barely walk. But yet I was able to turn around once I understood this information that you're listening to right now. I was able to lose 70 plus pounds and heal my hip by understanding what I just explained to you. And I actually linked a video in the description. It's written out, and I will link it at the end of this video, this live stream, for you to watch that video next, because it's possible, right? 6 years ago, I did not look like this. If this is making sense to you, and you want to support me in changing the way the world thinks about food and health, subscribe. If you're already subscribed, then click the button, the like button, and leave a comment, because, do the things. Let's take a look at our comments. So first of all, hello AS, Jay. So we have John Boston, hello. And I have Acer White in here. Aaron Gobrat, so glad to see you guys. So do we have any questions? Hello, Sing It, I see you down there. And Lynn Scott. So AS says they do taste better. Tasting better is the beginning of us having poor health. So yeah, I definitely agree with you though. Like, there's a fun taste. So am I agreeing with you? Yes, because our mouth gets trained on whatever we're eating. So yes, they taste good to us. However, what's pulling us towards them is the addiction that we don't even know we have, right? Because when I realize my weight is rising and I don't like that, when I realize my health is deteriorating and I don't like that, when I realize that I'm in pain all the time and I don't like that, and I try to stop eating them and I can't, that is because I'm addicted. John Boston, hello Violet, glad to catch a live stream. I've noticed shopping carts at the grocery store all filled with foods in bags and boxes, and I feel guilty buying light cream for my coffee, lol. I don't buy light cream for my coffee. I buy the heavy cream, and even that I've been thinking lately, like, can I figure out how to drink my coffee black? Or maybe just with the butter. And it's something that I played with on and off. I'm still feeling pretty good with the heavy cream, so that's why I'm still doing it. But I do play with it on and off. I put less sometimes. Sometimes I just want to test if I can do it. Because if I can get to that point, I think it's probably going to be worth it to my overall health. Because this is where I get scared. I've heard of even companies that were in our keto community making products for us, telling us that they were completely good ingredients, no extra sugars and everything, and then found out that through lawsuits found out that those companies had actually put things in their product that they were not disclosing. So I would hope that today people are not doing that, but am I guaranteed that? No. And so that's a company that's in our space. Do I think that a normal food company making heavy cream is being as careful? No. I think that they possibly could leave something off of an ingredient list because, the government's not telling me to put it there. I'm not going to put it there. And I won't know until some scandal comes out and we find out, there was this extra thing in the product. So, but at this point in time, I'm trusting the label, even though I don't want to trust the label because I just can't seem to get used to black coffee yet. But I do drink it when I'm fasting, so maybe that's an excuse. Something to think about, something to look at. Hello, Acer. Great to see you back from vacation. Yes, I had a nice vacation, thank you. Just got in and you're talking about making cookies. Make smaller hamburgers and just call them meat cookies. Oh, that is so fun. That is fun. I remember there was a time when a burger company, I can't remember which one, was making these little teeny tiny hamburgers, and you would buy 3 hamburgers instead of a regular size hamburger. Now, was it the same amount of meat? I don't know. Back then I wasn't thinking about those things, but they were just cute. And when I would take the kids to the restaurant, I would buy those little cute hamburgers, but they're hamburger cookies or meat cookies. I like that idea. So Aaron says, we have been programmed. Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think all of the different types of cereals, and I begged my parents for it as a kid growing up. Okay, with malt of meal, but Captain Crunch was a standout. Malt of meal. I don't remember. That sounds kind of familiar, but I'm not sure I know that cereal. But Captain Crunch for sure. I definitely can tell you that. So Captain Crunch and honeycombs, I think, are a very similar cereal, except that Captain Crunch is even sweeter than honeycomb, which is like surprising to me. But I remember that Captain Crunch, I used to eat it like just as a snack, like just without the milk, because I found like in milk it was just turning everything too sweet. But I still bought it, I still ate it like without the milk. So what does that say, right? And probably I figured that out when I tried to put it in milk. It was too sweet, and I just started eating it like that to not throw food away. Like the mistakes we make, right? Not throw food away. And not wanting to waste. And I probably just figured that piece of the puzzle out. So John says, you're correct about addiction. I used to leave some M&Ms in the freezer and would get my sugar fix, and it's a slippery slope. Oh, so basically you left them in the freezer so that they would need to defrost before you could eat them? So it would delay when you could have them? For sure. I think a lot of people do like my trick was when I started to find myself indulging in nuts. My trick was to buy them raw, which I didn't like, so that I would have to bake them, which doesn't take that long, but it's just if anybody is not new here, if you know me for a little while, you know I hate to cook. So that extra step of having to actually roast the nuts before I could have them, yeah, it sometimes would deter me from having them. But I will tell you, not as often as I wanted it to. And eventually I just found like I got into such a good routine of making them that I could make them more quickly. And as soon as I figured out how to make them more quickly, yeah, the whole plan went to pot. And then I was just eating them as regularly as not, because it became easy for me to do. So I think one of the things that's really hard is that when we're addicted to something and we put a barrier in front of ourselves, that's not going to solve the problem. Like the barrier is just going to get me to be creative about how am I getting around that barrier. The truth is, if I shouldn't be eating this thing, then I need to talk to myself and really talk about what's more important, Violet, my good health or this flavor that I'm having. And it's only whenever I do that to myself, where I sit down and I look at the carb count and the negative impact that that's going to have on my actual health especially if I end up feeling that hip pain come back, it's the number one thing that makes me kind of slap myself in the face and say, stop it, eat properly. So I think that we all need to look at these things, right? And as you said, it's a slippery slope. Aaron says, I still use stevia regularly, but considering I used to lay on the sugar when I ate Cheerios as a kid and drink the sugary milk when the cereal was gone. So what I feel like you're saying is I still use stevia, but I used to be worse. And sure, I'm very happy to hear that you're doing better, and I commend you on that. And could we do even better? So again, it's a question mark. I made a video, I'm trying to remember what the name of it is right now, but I made a video recently talking about the fact that when we eat anything sweet, our body reacts, right? Your body doesn't understand that stevia isn't giving you real carbohydrates or a significant or whatever. It doesn't understand that. So because it doesn't understand that, it's still putting some sugar away. So as fat for that incoming sugar that it thinks is coming, that eventually doesn't come. So if you're going to keep doing that, Aaron, I think the safest way that you could do that is make sure that whatever you're using stevia in, you're eating it along something or drinking it along something that actually has some carb in it, so that when your body puts that sugar away, some carb does come in to help your body out. But if you're doing like a coffee and that's all you're having and you put stevia in it, you might put yourself in a situation where you end up eating earlier. So being hungry earlier because your body is going to send you looking for food that you would not have needed to have. I hope that's making sense. And you can look on my channel. There's a video. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I don't remember right now, but there's a video I just recently put up. So it's one of the last, I would say one in the last 4. I put up one talking about sweet. Why it's I'm actually biting into like a cookie or something on a keto cookie on the image. Can't remember the name of it right now. So let's see. Aaron Gobra says money changers. Christ warned us. Money changers. Is that something? Is that a term from the Bible? Money changers? Okay. Not sure. I find myself looking at other people's shopping carts. Folks are still buying the processed junk. Yeah, of course. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon unless we get this message out there more. So, I mean, you could share this video that helps people to see what I'm talking about. Because the more people know that this is a thing, and the more people know that it's known, this is known information. Please, if you haven't read Salt, Sugar, Fat, and Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? The links are in the description below to check them out. Those are affiliate links, and that helps the channel. But they're good books to read. When I read them, I'm not even through all the way Salt, Sugar, Fat, but it just blows my mind. Okay, let's see. So Nancy's hooked on crochet. Said I fell off the keto wagon and need to get back on. I really do encourage you to get back to doing the healthy diet, Nancy. I think that only positives come from putting down processed foods. And I'm going to say that. Like, if there's one thing that you do, Nancy, to get started, is put down all processed foods and eat only. So, right, pasta and bread are processed. I know a lot of people don't consider them processed. It's funny, when I say processed food, people automatically think cookies and chips and whatever. But if it comes in a package and it's like more than one ingredient, or if it's had its nutrients stripped away, so that's where rice and quinoa and these other things, like if you had quinoa straight from the plant, or even rice straight from the plant, you couldn't eat it the way that you eat what we're having, which is been stripped and processed to make it easier to cook, because it doesn't take hours, it takes minutes, but it's not healthy. So I would really aim at vegetables and meats. That's what I would aim at. So Aaron Gobras says, you're only good for two things. Work for me as cheap as I can get you, or buy my products or services. And this is what's so sad, is that we are unaware that that's what's happening, because we all need to work, and we have government rules that are supposed to ensure that we all get a fair wage. But even that fair wage that the government, so that minimum wage that the government says everyone must make, isn't enough for the average person with more than one person living in their house that's dependent on them to survive. Right? If you're making minimum wage, like we're trying to raise a child, it's really, really hard. Now, if I have two people trying to raise a child, it gets easier if you're on minimum wage. But then if you add one more kid, you're in trouble again. Not to mention, you're raising that kid without any activities or like any extras, right? So I feel like we don't even realize, because we've been so programmed to say that, oh, you should definitely be making more than the minimum, which is ideal. But then when you try to go make more than the minimum, that company is looking at you and saying, oh, but I don't want to pay you more than what I absolutely have to. We are a number. In so many places, we are a number, right? Now, there are a few places where we aren't a number, right? When you think about your circle of friends, you're not a number. If you work for a small company, you're not a number, right? If you have a sports team, or like some kind of a community that you belong to, you are not a number. And I wish that we could figure out the way that in larger companies, we could stop people from being treated like numbers. I wish that when it comes to selling people products, we could figure out a way to help people to not feel like a number. It's part of the reason that if you go over and you join the Wellness Squad, which is free, I welcome everybody in. And I try to answer every conversation. I try to be part of every conversation or topic that's happening in there, because it's a community. I want us to know each other. I want you guys talking to each other, and I want you guys talking to me, right? And I feel like this is where, you don't feel like a number if you buy something from a company that's worth what you paid for it. You don't feel like a number, right? If it's serving the purpose and helping you to accomplish what you want to accomplish, that's amazing. I remember the first cell phone I ever bought. I didn't feel like a number. It served the purpose. It made phone calls. It was reasonably priced, right? It served the purpose. When I went to buy my daughter her first cell phone, I felt ripped off. How was this? This is, and it was the what do you call it? Like, so the iPhone, the one that they make, the light or whatever, I can't remember what it was called at the time, but they make it for kids, right? And it was like, what, $100, right? Less than the regular one? I felt ripped off. I bought the regular one. Why am I going to spend $100 less? It can't do as much. It's not to have the same size screen. It doesn't do as much. And what's the point of that, right? They're taking advantage, because everybody wants an iPhone, right? It's frustrating, right? And then when they do it with something that's supposed to make our health, we're trying to be healthy. We're trying to manage. We're trying to do what's best. And when they do it there, that makes you want to scream. Because what they're really saying at that moment is, it doesn't matter that you want to be healthy. It just matters that I want money. And so I'll lie to you about what's in this product, because it doesn't matter. Well, that's where it matters. Because they might not notice that you stopped buying the product because you've disappeared, but your friends and your family will 1000% notice that you're not feeling well, or even worse, that you've left. We need to focus on eating what's healthy. So be dear. Hello. It took me a very long time to accept that it was the food that was making me sick. My blood work convinced me. It is better when I eat healthy, and the levels are higher when I don't. And this is what's unfortunate, is that for many of us, we need to get sick to change this, because these companies have been so good at convincing, paying off. I don't know. Like, again, the medical schools and the doctors and the nutritionists and the nutritionist schools, like this world of medical, even though they've known since 1915 that high insulin causes fat storage, that high sugar causes high insulin. They've known this, but somehow it's a calories in, calories out story. So it's unfortunate that we need to get sick so that we become aware of this information. Even though when you ask your doctor, and I challenge all of you to do this because I've done it before, when you ask your doctor, but doesn't insulin determine fat storage? Isn't that what, like when your insulin is high, you store fat? They all answer yes because it's a fact. When you ask them, well, wouldn't that mean that eating things that are high in sugar will cause insulin to rise, which we call fat storage? They all answer yes because it's a fact. But then when you turn and say, which I did, but doesn't that mean that eating bananas and like mangoes and all these really sweet fruits would cause me to gain fat? Oh, but they're healthy. No. Oh, but fruits are healthy. You should be eating fruit. It's not logical, Wellness Warrior. It's not logical. Hey, Pat. You came in, you came out. Okay. Hi, Pat, Ms. Jamming. How are you doing? Glad to see you here. Doritos are super addictive. Every single chip on the market that's not just a potato that's sliced is addictive. And even potatoes, just sliced potatoes. They were doing research. So believe this. This is how minute they're willing to go. They were doing research to check what size and shape of salt crystals work best at getting you to overeat chips. So it's not just that there's salt on it. What size and shape, because apparently they have the ability to produce salt with specific texture and shape and size. And Wellness Warrior, do you understand that it's on purpose? It's on purpose. So Singh says, I am near tears. I'm a slippery slope addict, under 20 grams of carbs, but I have a headache from Saturday. Eating artificial sweeteners to keep from eating sweets at gatherings that will give. Okay, so here's what I'm going to point out to you, Sing It, because again, I want us to understand what's happening. Doctors have done, so there's been research done, not doctors, there's been research done that shows that if you take a solution that has artificial sweetener in it, it tastes sweet, and you swish it in your mouth and spit it out, your blood still goes, so your insulin still goes up, and it takes sugar. Obviously, when your insulin goes up, it's taking some sugar out of your blood. Why? To make space for the incoming sugar. But then none shows up. Now, my guess, Sing It, is that you're like me. I mean, it's horrible, the kind of violet syndrome that I have. When I eat too much sugar, I get pain in my hip. If I don't eat fast enough, I will get a headache, right? If I need to do a bowel movement and like sometimes I don't get the message to go, I'll end up in the washroom. But like I'll feel sick, I'll feel nauseous, right? Because my body just beats me up with signals rather than just giving me those normal signals. And I think it's because of all the years of trying to ignore what it was telling me in a normal way. It started to give me these even more huge, big signals in a bad way. Because you think about it, back when I would try to eat better and I would have these really low fat meals and I'm not going to snack and I'm going to do all the right things, right? That meant that I wasn't having my afternoon snack or my evening snack or my between breakfast and lunch snack because I was eating better. I was trying to be healthy, right? I had to stay under a certain number of calories and all kind of garbage. But what does that mean, right? Because so it's not a diet necessarily because I'm still eating normal foods. I'm just eating much less of them. And what did Dr. Fung help us to understand? That's what actually puts you into starvation mode. I think that in your attempt at saying, oh, instead of having a real cookie, I'm going to have this sweetened artificially cookie. What you're not understanding is that for your body, it's still seeing, oh my God, incoming sweet, and it's rising your insulin anyway. And that's not helping your cause, because if my insulin rises anyway, I still can get kicked out of ketosis, even though I haven't eaten too much carb. Does that sound crazy, Wellness Warrior? Right? Eat enough fat bombs and you still can rise your insulin. And if my insulin is rising and rising and rising, my insulin resistance is, right? Like, it's not only strictly about producing ketones. It's also about having good insulin levels. So trying to get out of insulin resistance. I hope I'm making sense here. Like, I'm not 100% sure you get kicked out of ketosis, but I know that your insulin will rise, because all the doctors have reported on that research. Dr. Berry was the most recent one that I remember finding in another of his videos. Actually, I put it up in one of the live stream a little while ago. I don't know if I have it here that I could play it again. But if you just swish the I don't know if this is actually the one, but if you just swish the I'm going to try to see if I can find this video for you. Oh, I would have to do that another time. But if you go back, there's a live stream where I played it, because the point is, if I don't understand that that's what my body is doing, that as soon as it tastes sweet, sugar is that toxic. As soon as it tastes sweet, it's putting sugar away. It's preparing for this problem that's coming. And if I don't understand that's what my body's trying to accomplish, trying to keep me safe, then I'm going to do things like, oh, I'll just have an artificial sweet. But how many people do we know, myself included? I used to drink diet sodas. I was still overweight. I didn't lose anything. Now, of course, I was eating normal junk food too. But, I mean, you see a lot of people that switch from diet soda to regular soda to diet soda. And they might lose a little bit at the beginning, but then they just get back up to their normal weight, and they're now not drinking regular soda. How is that possible? Right? How can I stay stable and it's because, as far as your body's concerned, there's still sugar there, because it doesn't understand that. So I don't know. I hope I'm being clear, but I'm going to try, and maybe I will link that little video, seeing it. I'll give that to you in the, I'll link to my video where I talked about that, and I showed Dr. Berry's clip in the Wellness Squad later, so that you can take a look at it. But he did report on it. It was very interesting. Aaron Bra says, I used to buy from Nush and Fat Snacks. Yeah. I mean, again, I encourage everyone to be skeptical of any company that's trying to capitalize on keto, because when you listen to the doctors talk about what keto is, it's take the junk food out. So let me give you another reason why to not buy keto snacks, or to make them, or to eat them at all. So if I eat, 5 grams of carbs from a keto cookie, how big is that? Okay. A keto cookie, right? That's 5 grams of carbs. Now maybe I get, or keto bar, because those keto bars, yeah, right? But let's say I even get lucky, and it's a 1 gram cookie. So 1 gram of carb in that cookie. That's pretty good. But now you ask yourself, how much broccoli would I eat before I get to 1 gram of 1 gram of carbs? It's much more than that one cookie, right? You get to eat a good portion of broccoli. I feel like we don't, and it would stay with you longer. That's the other piece of the puzzle. But even better, what if I just had a slice of bacon, or 5 slices of bacon for that matter? If I'm hungry, which is the only reason that I should be eating. So if I'm hungry, wouldn't the bacon be the better choice? If I ate the bacon, It's got fat, which fuels and builds me, and it has protein, which builds me. Maybe I have a piece of sausage. Maybe I have an egg. Maybe I actually just make myself a meal, full-out meal. What's this? But if I just want a little something, cookie versus bacon, bacon's a better choice. What's interesting to me is that when I talk to people, most people say, "Oh my gosh, I love bacon," but then when they're going to snack, they eat the cookie, the keto cookie. We need to ask ourselves, why am I doing that? If I actually love bacon, why am I snacking on the keto cookie? And it's because you're still letting yourself be in this world that says sweet is the only way to snack. That there has to be some carbs in it or it's not really a snack, right? It's not true. But it's part of the lie that they tell you to keep you hooked in their system that gets you to change. Okay, so you're not going to eat my Weight Watchers. I love them for this one. You're not going to eat my regular Weight Watchers shake. Oh, here's a keto version for you. And when you look at the ingredients between the regular and the keto, and I did this years ago, there's a video on the what's the difference? A little bit less sugar, but there's still a bunch of other chemicals and a bunch of other things that when you add it up, the numbers didn't make sense, but they're calling it keto, right? Because they can. Does that make it keto? No. So I'm very skeptical. I'm skeptical of wellness warriors on these products. Right? So should this addict get talk therapy? I agree with all. I hear usually never think about garbage at all. Okay. So, one thing I would say is you did a month, because you're saying here you did a month of carnivore. But then, obviously it says you're messed up since that month. So that means that's saying to me, and if I get it wrong, please correct me, that's saying to me that you actually stopped doing carnivore and you went back to keto. And so my question to you is, if I go back to keto and right away see myself chasing, right away see myself engaging in the wrong behavior, but when I was doing carnivore, I was doing well, what stops me from going back to carnivore? And the only thing that actually stops you from going back to carnivore is this belief that we should be able to eat veg, right? But if you're not in a position, either A, that you can manage it without getting triggered, or B, that it's causing you some kind of physical illness, like what was my case. Like, the more I realized that the less veg I ate, the less pain I had. But that's my story. Wellness warriors, I want you to think about something. If you eat something, and you do well, so let's say you did carnivore and you did well, but there are people that do carnivore all the time. If I remember correctly, Sean Baker's always carnivore, and Dr. Barry seems to be mostly carnivore with a few days of veg. I'm mostly carnivore. I have one day a week, maybe two, where I might have some veg. Why do I do that? Well, for me, it keeps the pain at bay. I don't feel pain if I only have an avocado every once in a while or some olives every once in a while. I also don't chase, though. So here's the thing. I want you to think about this thing. You brought back the veg into your life and you started chasing. What is chasing? Chasing is addiction, right? So if I have cravings and I'm chasing, my addiction has been reawakened. And yes, now what am I learning? I'm that insulin resistant that I can be eating 20 grams of carbs or less. So I'm just making the assumption that you were, at the beginning, you were doing your 20 or less. I started chasing again. At that moment, seeing it, you have two options that you could make. Again, I will tell you that I feel like either one could work. I go back to carnivore. Boom, that's it. Or I take my carb count and I say, wow, my number isn't 20 because at 20, I'm chasing. Maybe it's 15 or 18. Like, my number was 18. So I slowly went down and realized that I could do 18 and be fine. You need to figure out maybe what your number really is maybe your number isn't 20. Now, I don't know if you're doing net or total. I was doing net. So 18 net, I stopped having pain. Because I'm me. Because I know that I can get pulled into something without even paying attention, and next thing you know, I'm eating more than I thought. I decided I'm going to cap myself at 10. It'd be hard for me to accidentally eat 8 extra grams of carbs in a day. But could I see myself trying to do 18 and so not to pass 18, but accidentally passing 18 because I was aiming at 17? Sure. Especially since learning from Dr. Hampton in that interview that companies are allowed to be 20% over. So if I'm aiming at 18 grams of carb, which is not a lot, but companies are allowed to be over. So for those of us who do eat packaged foods, I easily could have gotten over. Now, I don't eat packaged foods anymore, so that's not a concern of mine. However, if I do put veg on my plate, I still need to understand that what happens if I decide I want an extra serving and okay, so I had this much on the plate the first time, I have to do more calculation. But if I make a mistake in my math? All of this to say, options you have, go back to carnivore. There's nothing wrong with carnivore. Right? I kind of like it. That's why I do it most of the time. And you could do it most of the time and then have maybe one day and see how that feels to you. But I feel like the second part of the puzzle is much more important. Change what your top number is. Maybe 20 isn't your number. Maybe it's 18. Maybe it's 15. Maybe it's 5. I mean, Michaela Peterson learned out that her number was 0. She cannot eat any veg. It just messes with her body. I remember being overweight for about 8-ish years. And before that, I was in a lot of pain, but I wasn't overweight. So if you look at the length of time that I was suffering with eating the wrong foods, it turns out to be about 23 years. It will take me 10 years, maybe 15, but 10 years to get to. So it's 7 to 10 is the number I first heard, but now I've learned there are little bits of your body that take about 15 years to replace, whatever. But let's say 10 years to get back to my new body. Well, if I lived 23 years in pain, and on top of that, I was destroying my body for the whole 45 and a half years because I started eating solid food at 6 months old, and it was standard Caribbean diet. Then is it so much to ask to give my body 10 years to rebuild itself with proper food so I can have the healthiest possible situation for me? I don't think that's too much to ask. Now, of course, I understand that there's environmental stuff like smoke and smog and all the garbage that potentially will be causing damage to my body. I get that. I can't eliminate that. I understand that, I could fall off my longboard and hurt myself, and then that's going to delay things because my body's going to give attention if I break my arm to my broken arm over rebuilding other things because that would take precedence at that moment. I understand that there's all these factors that will play into how long it will take me to actually have that new rebuilt body that's what I want it to be. But here's the thing. If I keep going back to eating the garbage, I'm resetting my clock over and over and over again. And Wellness Warrior, sing it. I don't want you to do that. I want you to look at this from the perspective of I can be successful because I know what to do and I'm doing what's best because it's actually the healthiest thing for me to do. And how does life look different when I do that? I hope I'm encouraging you right now to do it, right? And talk therapy, that's a good thing to do for us regardless, right? Because even if you get your food completely under control and you're able to walk forward eating on plan every single day, there's a good benefit to understanding why I fall off sometimes. What are the problems underlying that I'm not solving? Maybe because I'm not realizing it's a problem, or maybe it's because I see the problem, but I'm pushing it away because I'm afraid to address it. We don't self-soothe with food for no reason. The same way that we don't celebrate with food for no reason. We celebrate with food because we give ourselves a reason to celebrate. Oh, it's the weekend. Oh, I got the job. oh, I stole a base at baseball, or like whatever we did that was amazing, right? And I give myself that excuse to celebrate with ice cream or cookies or whatever. And it's the same thing when I don't know how to solve a problem. I give myself a self-soothing caress by eating a cookie or ice cream or something. I hope that made sense. Lynn Scott said, I make meat cookies all the time. I do love that idea. I'm going to start doing it too. Although I wonder, so when you make a meat cookie, do you reheat it after? That's a question. Or do you I guess you must be reheating it. See, I can eat cold bacon. That's why I don't mind having bacon in the fridge. Or stealing a piece of bacon off of someone's plate. But I don't think I would like to eat ground beef or ground pork. I'm assuming you must be heating it. Oreo cookies were my most favorite cookie, and you're right. No coffee comes even close. Thank you. I do feel like that. Let's see. Are there any questions, actually? One of the reasons that I transitioned to keto, so from keto to carnivore, is because I wanted to completely stop chasing. Okay, absolutely. And it is very, very effective. Well, thank you for confirming what I was thinking and saying. I grow my own green leafy stevia. Okay, Acer, thank you. Much, much better. So basically then what I'm understanding is that you're having less processed stevia, and it's a better quality stevia, and I totally agree with that. I'm so happy to know there's not processed stevia. That makes me happy. Perfect. I'm still going to go though to my second point. If it tastes sweet, your body's still doing the same thing to it. And it's just the way that our body works, Acer. So I'm trying to give you the information. I know you're going to do whatever you're going to. This is part of what I try to help people to see. I'm not going to say, oh, because it's homegrown stevia, it's fine. No. If you were home-growing apples or home-growing oranges, I would still be saying too much sugar. Your home-growing stevia, it's still the same scenario. You're ingesting stevia. Your body is tasting sweet, so your mouth is tasting sweet, sending a signal to your brain to say, oh my God, sugar's coming, put some sugar away. Your insulin is rising. And that happens every time you have your homegrown stevia. So yes, is it better than store-bought? 1,000%. Is it still doing the same process in your body? 1,000%. So that's my point. So AS is asking, am I saying that we should not eat any fruit? Absolutely is what I'm saying. With the exception of avocados and olives, because they are more fatty than they are sugary. But any fruit that's sugar first, I don't know if there's more fruits that are fat first. Avocado and olives are the only ones I've ever heard of. I would actually love if you guys know of any fruits that are that are fat first besides those two. Let me know, because that could be interesting to take a look at. So Erin, most keto folks suggest fruits are okay as long as you keep them under 20 grams. The reason that I don't suggest eating fruit is because it's not giving you anything of quality at the expensive amount of sugar in it that you couldn't get from vegetables. That's part one. Part two is the amount of fructose that you're getting from eating a fruit, even if it's a bunch of berries. The fructose content is higher. That's why it tastes sweeter. Again, if you were eating vegetables, you'd be getting the same micronutrients, but without the sugar, which means without the fructose. Fructose is very damaging to the liver. There was a research that was done, and what they did is they gave people a drink that had sugar in it. It was a sweet drink to drink, and some of it was fructose. And they actually had to abandon the study because they figured out that people's weight didn't change that much in the short period of time that they were doing the study. But all of their weight that they did gain in that short period, I think it was like 2 weeks, and it was supposed to go on for months, but there was like in that first 2 weeks, because they were doing scans on people, all of the weight that they gained was in their liver. And they figured out that fructose is extremely damaging to the liver. Not a little bit damaging. extremely damaging to the liver. So, do I think that any person should be eating fructose? No, not even anyone. Now, do people eat it? Yeah. Do some doctors say it's okay? Yeah. And what do I say? I think they're wrong. I'm not a doctor, though, so you're going to do whatever you're going to do. I'm just giving you my opinion. When I learned that piece of information, when I learned that half of the sugar in most fruit is fructose, when I learned that there's only a small amount of fructose in most veg, and that's why they don't taste the way that fruits do, but you're getting the same micronutrients from the veg. Like, to me, the logic is there. If you're going to eat something, eat vegetables. But, again, people, they push, berries are okay. They're fine. They're low in sugar. They're lower in sugar and high in fructose, in my opinion, are not the same conversation. Because we already know that we have the ability to overeat things. So if I'm eating berries, and then I end up overeating them, so maybe I wanted to eat maybe 1 or 2 grams of sugar from the berries, but I'm eating 4 or 5 grams of sugar from the berries, well, that's still 2.5 grams of fructose that I just ingested. And people don't look at that part, right? We want to scream about high fructose corn syrup. All right, we're saying that's horrible. Do we understand that high fructose corn syrup has the same percentage of fructose in it that table sugar does? That fruit does. Those 3 things have the same percentage of fructose. I don't understand why we're not talking about that. All right? That's why food companies love to take fruit sugar and put it in your food and call it fruit, because it tastes just as sweet. So, ASM, you asked, okay, that was not to me. Let's see, Lynn Scott, I ordered the Michael Moss from eBay. Terrific. I'm glad. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, Lynn, once you've read it. I'd love to hear. Sing it. Same as your words earlier when I meal prep. Lots of bacon included. It's available to grab. Can't grab bacon raw. No, of course, yeah. Of course not. So I do encourage that, and I really just wonder about maybe trying to do carnivore again. And I do endorse seeing a therapist. I think it would be probably very helpful to you. I feel like one of my lights went off. Okay. Have we been going for that long? What time is it? Oh, wow. Over an hour. Okay, Erin. And yet bananas are promoted for potassium. Yeah, you better to get your potassium from avocados. Or meat. You can get it, I think, organ meats, if I remember correctly. So the question from Girlina 101. I use real lemon juice in my meat marinades. I was always under the impression that the sugar content absorbed is negligible. Your thoughts? The sugar content absorbed? I'm not really sure what that means, because, and again, this is just me like walking it through. If I marinate my meat in something and there's sugar in the thing I'm marinating it in, when I turn around and I eat it, can I taste it? So just to give you the example, back in the day when they were marinating meat in sweet and sour, when I ate it, I tasted the sweet. So clearly the sweet got into that. So I'm not sure why sugar from the lemons wouldn't get into the meat. That doesn't make logical sense to me. But even if it didn't get into the meat, it would still be on the meat. And then you would cook the meat. So whether it's in the meat or on the meat, it doesn't change the fact that you're eating it, in my opinion. One of the ways that we know that we have sugar on certain things is that it caramelizes. But again, that depends on how much sugar. But Girlina 101, I think the bigger question for you to ask yourself is the amount of sugar from that lemon juice an amount that you feel is excessive for a serving? So what do I mean by that? If you're putting 1 tablespoon of lemon juice over your meat that's enough for 6 people, yeah, it's probably a negligible amount. and then you're going to take your decision. I feel like the bigger question is, am I giving myself excuses? That's what I'm looking at. Because if I say, oh, it's negligible, I don't count it, then when I'm doing my my keto tracking and I'm putting in all my ingredients, I might not put that lemon juice in. Why not? Oh, because it's negligible. No, you still track it, you still count it, and you pay attention to it, because maybe it might not matter for the carb count, but maybe you find out that you actually have a problem with fructose. And so that little bit of fructose added up with all the other fructose that causes a problem for you. Maybe you find out that you have an allergy to lemons. Maybe, like, my point is, I track everything. Why? Because if I didn't track everything, I wouldn't have figured out my nightshade problem, which I'm allergic to nightshades big time. They cause joint pain like crazy for me, and now I do not have them. And I wouldn't have figured out that 18 was really my number, not 20. Right? I only figured that out because I was tracking, and I could see on the days where I was under 18, I was fine. And if I just touched 18 and a half, I wasn't okay. Right? Heaven forbid I got all the way to 20. I was waking up in the middle of the night crying. So these are things that we're not going to know unless we test and track and whatever. So as I've said before, I think I say a lot of things based on what is known to me at the time. And so because this is known, this is what I say. And knowing that fructose is damaging to the liver, I do not, as much as possible, I try to limit the amount of fructose. Right? But if you are going to use, you're welcome, Girlina 101. If you are going to use it, it's about knowing how much you're putting and then tracking and making sure that there's not any repercussions at all coming from that. So, and then I have MGS. Oh, wow. Okay, I can't say that. As I am about to eat a slice of farmer's market cantaloupe, you state that I am harming my liver. I'm glad I said it before you harmed yourself. So I hope you're looking at it from that perspective, because you might have eaten it and not even realized that you just added X amount of fat to your liver for no reason. And I do feel like this is part of the problem. We are marketed to hard that fruit is healthy when it's not, right? And not the way that we have it today either. One thing I want to remind every wellness warrior that's still listening to this right now. We didn't have fruit that looked this way years ago. So the fruit of today is bigger and sweeter. Why? Because they've made it bigger and sweeter. They've engineered the fruit to be bigger and sweeter. Why? Well, because we like sweet. Do we really like sweet? Or have we just been programmed to go after sweet? And the thing is, we've been programmed to go after sweet. Yeah, and Aaron is pointing out that fatty liver used to be predominantly from drinking. And the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease now is a lot from excessive fructose intake, whether it be sodas or excessive amounts of fruit. And like candy. Candy is another place where there's a lot of fructose. Like things that have syrups, another place. You know, there were a few channels I used to watch that were talking about how to make coffee. And I love them because they like helping me to understand my coffee machine and just dialing in my coffee. How to make a good espresso versus, and even some of them I was watching to learn how to make a good French press and how to make like all these different coffees that I like to play with. And then all of a sudden, this trend, a few years ago about, Dalgano coffee came up. And then all of these coffee channels that I were watching started making all these sweet coffees because they did that coffee and people loved it. And then they just pivoted to being like, oh, this sweet tasting coffee and that. And it's all these syrups and whatever. And the part that, well, I'm not going to watch those, first of all. Why? Because all of them have either a bunch of sugar or a bunch of fruit turned into sugar, or so they're making syrups out of all these fruits and just making ruined my coffee watching experience. I can't remember the last time I watched a coffee video, like in the longest time. We are so easily swayed by, well, either chasing the flavor or chasing the money, right? Because these coffee channels were getting my views, and they had great views, and all they were talking about was the delicious taste of of natural coffee and how to make it properly so you can get a great tasting shot. That's what they were talking about. And honestly, I can't remember the last time I got a good video from one of them. So I'm encouraging you guys to try to figure out the best way to just, I picked July to do meat to save me from cherries this year, my only fruit downfall every year. You didn't have one? That's terrific. Sing it. That's great. But so here's a thought exercise for you, because I didn't want negative goal. So I ended up doing this thing, which worked out. But then as soon as I stop, I go back to chasing. If I base my life on no's, it doesn't work, right? That's not a helpful thing to do. What would be a better reason to do carnivore? Like maybe do carnivore because it's healthy and it's going to help your body to improve. It's going to help you to think clearly. It's going to help you to stay on track with healthy eating, right? If I just do this because it's the right and healthy thing to do without any negative reason, I'm not trying to avoid something bad. I'm just doing what I know is good. Would I be more likely to do it long term? Right? Like I eat healthy because it makes me feel good. I eat healthy because it helps me think clearly. Those are great things, and they're always with me, and they're always reinforcing this behavior that I'm doing because I do the good behavior and I get the good outcome. So I want you to think about that a little bit differently. It's really hard when we say no to something, because when we're doing it to avoid something, then when it's time to go back to eating normally, I have no other reason to stay on track besides, well, what? Actually, I don't have a reason, right? So then I eat and I allow too much in. So I hope that helps. Again, I do feel you asked if talk therapy would be helpful, and I feel like, yeah, it could be, because, and I'm saying this to all wellness warriors, we all have things that if we would talk it through with someone else, whether it's a therapist, a best friend, a spouse, just talk through this idea, we would realize where the mistake is coming from, because that other person would be giving us feedback and asking questions, hopefully good questions, and helping us to do the things that help us to stay on track. And yes, I'm glad that you do remember the video that I talked about no, and there was another one I talked about we're just, because it's just a sneaky way to say no. So both of those videos would be good for you maybe to rewatch and kind of refresh yourself on. But then, can we find the good reason? Find a good reason. Why isn't there a keto AA group? Or is this it? I told you, wellnesssquad.org. Wellness Squad. It's scrolling across the screen right now. Come join and talk to us, right? I want you guys in there talking to each other, supporting each other, so that even when I'm not available, when I'm working, that you guys can talk to each other and keep each other on track. Wellnesssquad.org. Seriously, I'm definitely encouraging you to look into it. Many of us will get a sugar spike followed by an insulin spike and an insurmountable crash. Lady at church made me a banana pudding, absolutely delicious, knocked me out worse than a fifth of alcohol. Okay. Mandel, I feel like you're in a similar situation where you're still chasing and you don't even realize that you're chasing. And so people hand you things and you don't say no. And the only way to get through this is to learn to say, no, thank you. I don't eat that. But in order to say that, you need to believe it, that I eat healthy food. right? Like, if someone tried to give me a banana pudding, I'm looking at them like, really? Like, I mean, first of all, I talk about it all the time. Everybody around me knows I don't eat that. It's not even a question. They're not going to come up and even offer me that, right? But if I were to go to a new environment, like, for example, while I was on vacation, when the waiter came along and was talking about what was on the plate, I was very clear. Don't put that. Don't put that. I just want that, right? When I made my plates at the buffet, I didn't care how people looked at me. I made my plates based on what I actually eat. And I only eat healthy foods. So I want you all to commit to yourself, right? And it starts with how you talk to yourself. This is between you and you. How do you eat? Right? Do you eat garbage? Right? Are you allowing yourself garbage so that your health can deteriorate? Or do you eat healthy food so that your body can be built stronger, healthier every single day? I know, I'm annoying. Eat healthy every day. I say it, prioritize health over taste. I say it all the time. Why? Because it's the one thing that you actually can control that will lead to your success. Because I decided 5 years ago and a half, that I only eat healthy food. I started only eating healthy food. And then when I decided no more, I'm not even going to touch a fruit, I stopped, except for avocado and olives. That was my exception. I stopped eating all other fruit. Haven't touched one since. That was probably about 3 years ago that I found out the fructose thing. And then when I decided, you know what? I'm good with just olives, avocado, broccoli, and cabbage, and asparagus. Those 5, and I mean asparagus, I don't really like it. I only make it if Pat happens to cook it because he likes it. But those 4 vegetables, when I decided that those are the 4 vegetables I'm comfortable eating moving forward, I went on vacation. I got my plate. There was 3 pieces of broccoli about this big. I ate those. I left everything else alone. Why? Because those are not things that I eat. Why? Because I've decided to only eat healthy food. Why? Because I classify those other vegetables as not healthy food. This is how I actually talk in my own head. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sharing it with you because I want you to understand until you start talking like that, right? Until you start talking like that, then you're not, and you do talk like that, by the way. For those of you in relationships, and then somebody comes along and says, hey, here, take my number. We can get together. You say no. Why? I have a spouse. Why? Because I love my spouse. Why? Because I'm not going to do that because you answer, right? It's quick. When someone says, hey, I know this scheme where we could steal from the bank. No. Why? Because I'm an honest person. Why? Because I have a job and I make money. Why? Because I buy what I want. Like, we do this talk all the time, very fast, very quick. But somehow when it comes to food, we've let the food companies infiltrate our brain and tell us that answers that aren't true are what the answers are. And I'm trying to get you to see where it's not reality. Those aren't your answers. You're giving the food company's answer. Oh, it's calories in, calories out. You just didn't try hard enough. Oh, you just didn't work out long enough. Oh, you just didn't eat a small enough portion. Okay, how small of a portion can I eat before I'm in trouble? How much exercise can I do before I don't have time for work? Right? Unless it's your job to exercise, you will not be able to exercise away your weight. And by the way, most athletes and actresses, all these people that are in the public eye, that exercise their body to be how it looks, still end up with metabolic problems. We are not just trying to solve weight here, Wellness Warrior. We're trying to solve metabolic issues because the goal is for you to be healthy, for you to have the body that functions properly all the time. It's just, again, eat healthy all the time. Prioritize health over taste. I say it all the time because it's what I want you to be doing. I want you to be doing it all the time. Now, I know I say these things knowing full well that maybe 5% of you will hear me and go, damn, okay, Violet's serious. I'm going to do it all the time. And then the other 95% are going to do whatever you're going to do. But if I can get 5% to change their mind with every video, I'm happy, right? If 5% of you leave this video going, I'm changing it. This is the day. I eat healthy all the time because healthy is what I need. Prioritize health over taste. I'm happy. And if 20% of you at least start thinking about it, I'm ecstatic, right? Why? Because I can't do something I don't know about. I have to know about it first. The reason I was eating the wrong foods for 46 years is because I did not know that those were the wrong foods. Today I know, and I don't eat them anymore. And Wellness Warrior, you can do the same. You can do the same starting right now. So Mandel says, I learned that day. I said no next Sunday, and I'm scared straight at least for a little while. Let's make it forever, Mandel. Change what you're saying to yourself, right? Losing a day isn't worth it. Losing a day certainly isn't worth it. My health is primary, but it's tough when you have social engagements. No, it's not. When you have a social engagement, Erin, you do not go rob a bank before you go there. You do not cheat on your spouse when you go there. Even if you had the opportunity to cheat, you'll say no to the person. I'm sorry. I'm pushing this envelope right now today, people, because I want us to hear that we give ourselves excuses. There's certain things that you just wouldn't do. And I'm asking you to make hurting your body, make hurting your health one of the things that you will no longer do. And so I'm going to talk about my course that I'm making because I want you to understand that I see that this is a big problem, that mental mindset piece of the puzzle, that we don't know how to talk to ourselves to make sure that we stay the course. And I have a course. I'm working on it right now. If you join the squad, you can be in the betas that are like getting access to it. And, but there's a mindset that goes along with this. And that means that there's things you actually need to know about how you think. And I'm telling you right now, you're giving yourself excuses. So I'm definitely creating some new synapses every time we hear it. The wrong grooves in our brain go derp. Tampa John, I'm in your 5%. Your Cheeto video changed everything for me. I watched and rewatched it all the time. I watch and rewatch it all the time. Tampa Jan, thank you for letting me know that I helped you, and that you know what? This video today was worth it just to know that I got one person in my 5%. Terrific. I'm ecstatic. I do see that we've been on for more than an hour and a bit, an hour and a half, so I do need to get going. But Wellness Warriors, you can do this. Eat healthy. Check out the video at the end. I lost 70 pounds. I go through it with you. And, yep. I will talk to you very soon.